Hello folks, we're back. Welcome back to Spoiler Alert. And yeah, today we're going to be doing something a little bit different. We're back to TV again. Yeah. It's time for The Punisher.
Certainly is.
Frank Castle.
Oh, man, I love me some Frank.
Love a bit of Frank?
Yeah.
Love a bit of Frank?
I do.
Yeah, Frank Castle introduced in Daredevil Season 2. Punisher went on a bit of a rampage. Family, dead. Government types, drug dealers, all sorts of bad, nefarious perps covering that stuff up. It goes deep.
It goes so deep.
And this is the series where Frank really gets to the bottom of it all.
Yeah, I would recommend, as someone who did not rewatch Daredevil Season 2 before watching The Punisher, if you'd forgotten some / most or all of Daredevil Season 2, I would rewatch it first.
Yeah, definitely go back and rewatch
caveat I would
Daredevil
say.
Season 2.
Yeah, which we should now do subsequently. But if you can do it before, then great.
Although it's still, like, I feel like I forgot most of Daredevil Season 2 over the last year or however long it's been since it's been on, and I still got the Punisher. The storyline. I haven't actually read any of the Punisher comics or anything in the actual sort of Marvel universe to do with the Punisher. I mean, I've known of him, but and so my main sort of introduction, I think this goes for you as well, was in Daredevil Season 2.
Yeah, that's what it's
as well as the terrible / kind of drunk fun films that have come before. There've been a couple. They're not very good.
About him?
Yeah, about the Punisher.
Right, okay. I haven't seen any of them.
They're not the best. This is by far the best incarnation of the Punisher that I've ever seen.
This is a phenomenal series.
Yeah. And Frank Castle's a really difficult... He's a very, very difficult character to get behind because he does have a code, but he also kills people really, really brutally.
He really does. I have to say, I loved it so much the whole way through, but the last 2 episodes were actually too much for me.
They really ratcheted it up.
I spent a lot of it behind a cushion. Because, not even because I was scared or because I didn't want to know what happened, just because I didn't need to see that level of detail. I was like, I know that you're killing him. I know that you're torturing him. I don't need 5 minutes of you literally squeezing his eyes out with your fingers.
Yeah.
Which I saw your face rather than watching it, actually, and that was enough for me.
Yeah, I'm not particularly squeamish, but that when he finally catches up to Agent Orange, the guy who's behind it all, there's an eye-popping scene that is so much worse than Mountain versus the Viper in Game of Thrones. There you got to know. There, to be fair, in that one, that wasn't exactly PG.
No, it was not.
You see him crush a skull in that, but this, I don't know, it's so squishy. The eyeballs are so squishy. Oh.
Yeah, it's pretty brutal.
That was that and the dragging a face down a broken mirror.
That was awful. Oh, that was so horrible. And he was terrifying afterwards with all his bandages on his face. He looked like some kind of alien, and it was horrific.
It was...
Oh, the noise and his screaming of his face being literally there's a broken mirror and his face gets dragged.
I'll be honest, we were watching it and I was like, a neighbour's going to come knocking on our door at these sounds. Because it gets really... It gets really, really grim. Really, really brutal.
Yeah, you need a bit
beyond
of
what you... it's some of the most brutal violence I've seen on...
Yeah. I'd say that.
On TV. And part of that is just because actually, in order to fit the Punisher into the Marvel TV universe, they've made it realistic. They've made it gritty, which, and we'll talk about whether or not it's controversial in a sec, but it means that violence it's not cartoonish, because we've seen over the top violence on TV before, it's not OTT. It's really raw and quite visceral.
Yeah, it is. But it's good because as you say, sometimes it can just be either just ridiculous, in the extreme, just not believable, or it can be too weak and you just think, oh, come on, you just, make it real, make it for, if you can't show the level of violence you want to because of the rating, change the rating and up it. And it's just I don't care if children can't see it. Yeah, I want to see that properly. But,
This is a new side to my girlfriend, everybody.
No, just because...
I've been showing her too much action stuff, like John Wick, The Raid, now this.
Oh, John Wick is so good. The Raid was also really good. Anyway, but yeah, I just think it's so good. I think you need, as you say, you need to see it. He's gone through so much, and the thing is, if you're gonna punish this many people in these many ways so consistently for taking away your family, you might as well do it right. And you might as well do it properly, and you might as well go for it. And he's not scared of what he does. And obviously, like, he has, as you say, there's so much to him because he's so conflicted, because it's not like he's killing for fun. Like, he's not necessarily enjoying it. But
he doesn't. He wishes for death.
Exactly. Like, he doesn't think that he deserves to be alive because of what he's done, but also he can't see another way, and he's hurting so much that you kind of need to see that pain to really feel it with him, and you want to feel it with him because you want to not empathise, because obviously no one wants that to have happened to them, but you want to sympathise because you feel so sorry for him, and it kind of is a really good way of showing the pain he's in by transferring that to the brutal murders.
Yeah, there's some catharsis in that, in that violence. But I mean, some of
the people, you hate them so much by the end. Like, one of the main guys, Billy, who is the face man.
Ben Barnes doing a really good villain job.
Like, fantastic. But by the end, you want him to be caught so much because he's been doing such awful stuff and for so long so undiscovered. And you know that he's betrayed them all and they don't know. And for
she was screaming
for him to get caught. And so, in that way, then you kind of enjoy it because you're like, okay, the face thing too much, as we've said, but like, you want him to be caught and you want justice to be served because you're just like, you're such a bastard that.
But I think like, so it would be easy to get really carried away with that. But I think one thing that this series does really well, and it needed to do really well, especially given the controversy and the level of gun violence in America, especially, the seeming stories every other day of another nutcase with a gun gone wild in America. There's no real good time for the Punisher for an examination of Frank Castle in that kind of environment. But I think this show does it really, really well. It doesn't just make Frank a one-note character, but it doesn't. You're right. You kind of sympathise, but you're also not necessarily excusing everything that he does. I love the level of complexity in this. Like, I don't think heroes and villains should be easily delineated. I think this is, like, Frank Castle is a fascinating character, and ultimately I think actually maybe, just maybe, it helps to have these conversations. Maybe if this sparks conversations around gun violence and around gun control and things like that, like debates, nuanced debates, rather than just a kind of like black and white, us v them, like tribalism that 21st century digital society seems to have spawned. Like, if it starts nuanced conversation, and I think it's capable of doing that. We've had a couple of really interesting conversations about this. Like, I think that's valuable, and I think it does it quite well. And I think the character of Lieberman, who is this ex-NSA hacker who is responsible for kind of like leaking the bad shit that was going on in Frank's unit in Afghanistan to Homeland Security, and he's gone into hiding and had to fake his own death as a result. Like, the bromance that kind of evolves between him and Frank brings out the humanity in Frank.
Yeah, but it also, it's a really interesting way of teaching people to work together. They have to learn to work together, even though they're fighting for the exact same things.
But they are so different.
Ways, but they're so different, and they want to go about it in such different ways because that's what they're used to. And he's, David's coming at it from an IT hacking point of view because that's what he knows, and he's not a violent man, and he's not trained in, as in the Marines as the way that Frank is. And Frank, as far as I know, doesn't know anything about hacking and doesn't want to because he uses his hands in a different way. So, I mean, yeah, so they sort of teach each other the value of which, the other person's work, and also, like, a lot of what Frank does, he cannot possibly do without David. For a start, obviously, David hacks into everything and everyone, and, like, the CIA and the NSA and Homeland and everyone, and has all of their movements and their, like, tactical plans, and, like, also their locations.
He's also apparently the only one who knows how to fly a drone.
Which he does very well. And so when Frank is on the ground, when he's out fighting people, he also has David there, like, literally watching him, guiding him, saying when he can
saving his life.
Completely,
in several episodes.
So many times, telling him when someone's about to shoot him so that he can get out of the way. That kind of thing. And they really, really need each other. And obviously David can't get his family back without Frank. So,
but it's a weird thing as well, like, because Lieberman because his family's still alive and he had to fake his own death, and he's able to sort of watch over them, but he's not able to tell them that he's alive for fear of putting them in danger. Frank's obviously lost his family, knows what that pain, that incredible pain is. And so when it comes to sort of the end, when David is like, he's facing this prospect of having to come clean to his family and reveal himself to his family, getting over that hurdle by having Frank to be able to say, look, you still have your family. And then also Frank's interactions with Lieberman's family, because he's able to go out in public, sort of. Yeah. Which is a bit of a plot hole.
Maybe
it's one of the holier elements of the plot. But the way he interacts with them, David's mixed feelings as, you know, Frank Castle, the Punisher, is cultivating this friendly relationship with his family. And there's still a bit early on where they're feeling one another out, and he's not sure, like, is this guy going to flip his lid around my kids?
Yeah.
Like, and then they come to trust one another, and it grows in a really nice way.
It was also really sort of, it's quite painful. I mean, we don't have kids, but even so, I felt like David's face when he watched Frank almost be a parent to his children, when he disciplined his son who'd gone completely off the rails in a way because he was so caught up after his dad's death, and he didn't know how to deal with it and expressed it through violence, and also teaching his daughter how to fix the pipes and things like that. And he sort of started to really get through to the kids, and David was watching it on camera, and it was heart-wrenching watching him not be able to be a parent to his own children. But I also really appreciated the fact, I felt like they did it quite sensitively with David and Frank's relationship evolving as Frank's interactions with his family increase. And then there was that moment where Frank and David's wife kissed very, very briefly. And it was sort of, you could see that was potentially where it was going, but I'm so glad that they didn't, like, fall in love or get together, or, like, it didn't go any further than that one kiss, because if they'd slept together, it would have been so stereotypical, would have been so predictable, it would have been so, oh no, we should have a sex scene because we can. And it's like, actually, there was... But
it also would have been completely out of character.
Yeah, which is like why I'm so glad that they didn't do it, and it was tactful, and that they had this moment to recognise that they were both lost, and they were both feeling this pain that they could share because they'd both lost someone or some people that they loved so much. And then they but then they backtracked and then, you know, became friends, and it was fine. And they helped each other, and then at the end, you know, Frank's the way that he said to David, like, I love my wife so much, like, she's gone, but I don't want your wife. And it was a really heartfelt moment, and I think they acted it just superbly. Yeah,
the acting in this is phenomenal across the board, from Castle to Lieberman to the Agent Madani, to also
to the villain, as you say.
Like some of the kind of slightly peripheral guys, the ex-military guys, like Lewis, who ends up becoming a bit of a domestic terrorist by accident.
He's an insane actor, and he's so good.
And like, I think one of the things that this series does really well as well, in an age where we're talking more about mental illness, is shine a light on PTSD. Yeah. Specifically in this regard, you know, to vets coming home and the things they carry with them back onto home soil. And there's this discussion all the time where, with like, we see in flashbacks with Frank and his wife, where she's like, "You're still not quite here. Like, where? Like, yeah.
Where is your home?
Where is your home?" And it's really, some of that stuff is really, really heartbreaking to see. And again, you like Lewis is a guy who is, he's gone through so much. He's struggled to readjust, to reacclimatize to life in peacetime. Like, he doesn't know how to handle this. And this happens to so many vets.
He's like 23, 24.
And the support systems in society just are not there. And he's one of the guys that ends up falling through the cracks and ultimately, suffers terribly and ends up like wreaking that suffering back on a number of people on the streets of America. And it's heartbreaking because you can see the journey, you can see the path, you can sympathize with the plight, although not with his actions. But it underlines that these are complex issues. I like the fact that it's not easily dealt with. The discussion over whether or not he and Frank are the same is one that takes a good episode or two to kind of like fully play out. And I like that it pulls these things up, and there are no easy answers, which I think is ultimately for the best in a series like this. Like, there needs to be no particularly easy answers in this. Although it does come to, you know, there's But I also like that, the flip side of that is you're given nuances in terms of the soldiers who've come back and are dealing with stuff. People like Curtis, who is the head of the support group, who lost his leg in war, and who breaks down sort of like later on in the series and says, look, man, fuck, I've thought about killing myself. I've thought about ending it all. I've thought about all of this. And that sort of the confident facade.
And I like when he says that,
broken.
In the support group, when he says that when he's talking to the others, he's talking to himself.
Yeah.
He's not giving them the answers. He's not saying this is what you should do. He's discussing it. He's saying, what shall we do? And that was very powerful. It's also a horrible scene where he got beaten around the head with his own leg.
Oh, God, yeah.
Pretty awful.
Thanks, Lewis.
Yeah.
But I mean, yeah.
Quite hard to watch, really.
So, yeah, to go back to the point, like, it's really well acted. Like, I think it would have been really easy for this to have sucked. It would have been really easy for this to have sucked and been just horribly out of touch with what's going on right now. But I think actually, I mean, there's not a huge amount of subtlety necessarily in what the Punisher does himself, but I think there's a certain amount of like deftness to the way they've dealt with some of the subject material. So yeah.
Yeah. No, really, really, really good.
Really, really good.
Excellent.
The only thing I would say is that apart from Madani, who is a great character and again really, really well acted, and a little cameo from Karen Page, women don't really get a hugely great time of it in this series.
To be fair, Madani also doesn't really get a great
Yeah,
time of it.
Madani gets really put through the ringer.
Yeah.
Like, yeah. It's not. Yeah, but again,
Yeah.
I think as well. This is a series that it centers a lot on, in some ways, toxic masculinity. I mean, part of the reason that the vets aren't able to necessarily come back into society, and they're all men for some reason. But maybe that is a comment on sort of the toxic masculinity and the fact that they were born to be soldiers, they're bred to be these supermen almost, and now there's no.
Yeah.
They haven't been able to
But
find
also,
a place.
they were in this special, like, tiny illegal task force. It's not like it was representative of the whole.
But not everyone in the group.
Army
Not everyone in the group.
Yeah.
But yeah, I think it's yeah.
Yeah. No, it's an interesting point.
So yeah, Punisher.
3, 2, 1.
I'm going up. Yeah.
You say that like you might have had an option.
Well, I think
everything you just said, how can he possibly have gone down?
But this is it. Like I think I'm really glad Marvel's back on form with TV because Iron Fist was so bad.
Oh,
Defenders was good, but I think this is really up there, and it's
Defenders was fantastic apart from the fact that it had Iron Fist in it.
Well, even he was quite funny when surrounded by the people going, "You're an idiot." But I think like the Punisher stands slightly apart, but it's also equally. It's a standalone series. You can enjoy The Punisher without watching any of the other Marvel TV stuff. But I think it also integrates quite nicely, sort of, generally.
I still want to point out this inconsistency, which, like, or this sort of, what's the word, like, really unbelievable thing that just winds me up because it happens every single time in these TV shows. Every time you have the same characters coming up, and Karen Page is a huge part of this. She's getting threatened by the bomber. She gets written to openly in the newspaper from the bomber, and she prints his letter. She's on the radio talking about it. She's completely involved. She's obviously, her life is obviously in danger. She's interacting with Frank Castle left, right and centre. And Matt and Foggy don't turn up. Like, I know that she's working in journalism now and that she's left the law firm and they've gone their separate ways and whatever, but Matt is still looking out for her. Like, there is no way that Daredevil does not come back for her at this point. Like, there is no way. So the fact that every time they, like, occasionally, in one of them they made a veiled reference to my friend who's a lawyer or something, but like this time you didn't even get that. It's just like, nope, they don't exist. And it's like, yes, I love the crossover, I really do. I love the fact that the characters turn up, although I missed Claire in this one because she has been in every other one.
I'm quite thankful she wasn't in this though.
But they could have really
used her medic skills
many times.
Yeah.
Although David did a great job.
He
but
did.
But I just think that I struggle sometimes with the picking and choosing. It's like, oh, when it's convenient, let's cross the characters over. Otherwise, pretend they don't exist.
Yeah,
like,
but you understand the conceit for that.
no,
Like,
of
it's
course,
all contractual. It's all the stuff that's out of the story. But I agree. I wish there was more kind of crossover.
Yeah. But I can see that it's completely unrealistic that you would have every character in every show, which is what you'd end up with if you tried to make it so believable that because they all do know each other. Like, we know that. So,
and Frank by the end is literally plastered all over every like news station.
Yeah.
Like, there's no way Matt wouldn't see that and just be like, oh, actually, he wouldn't see that,
well,
but he'd hear it. So there's no way he wouldn't pick up on that and be like, wait, what?
Yeah, no, totally. But anyway, let's not end on a negative.
Although actually, no, technically, like, at the end of Defenders, Daredevil is gone. So actually, maybe it does make sense.
Maybe.
Maybe. Just talking myself into plot holes there. But yeah.
Yeah,
so,
overall, fantastic. Definitely.
Punisher.
Go watch it.
Yeah, really, really, really good. Have you guys seen it? What did you think? Let us know. Did you wince and hide behind a cushion at some of the more brutal elements? How do you think it dealt with the whole gun violence kind of issue? Was it a good time for this? Is there ever a good time for Frank Castle? Let us know what you think in the comments. But yeah, we'll probably be back next Sunday with another spoiler alert.
See you then.
Until then, bye.
Bye.